And now at 9, we start with breaking news in Bremerton. An explosion has hit the city's Motel 6. Fire officials think a gas line may have exploded. This photo that you're looking at shows the damage. You can see a whole section of the building just completely destroyed on the ground. This photo was sent to us by a reporter with our news partner, the Seattle Times. The Motel 6 is located on the 3400 block of 11th Street in Bremerton. I was just looking at the satellite images. This is right next to a business complex. There's some fast food restaurants, a car wash, and homes just about a block away, an entire strip of homes. This is again happening in Bremerton, and initial reports say one person has been injured and taken to the hospital. We got a call in from a King 5 viewer, Amy Delaney, who heard this happen. She says that it actually woke her up. Amy, tell us a little bit about what you heard.
Well, actually, we were just getting ready to wind down for the night, and we were in bed talking, and, you know, our 2-year-old was running around getting things done for himself, and we were going back and forth with him and getting ready for bed, and I had just sat down on the bed, and we had heard the alarm, because we live directly behind PSE, Puget Sound Energy, and it had been going off for about an hour, and I turned to my husband and just said something, and, like, within 5 minutes, we had this huge explosion that sent a shockwave through like this little like canyon area behind our house, up through our backyard, in our window, shook our house, cracked our windows, and tossed me out of bed.
So you could actually feel this explosion, and there is damage to your home because of it?
You could feel it so bad. It was the scariest thing I've ever felt. And yes, damage, minor damage, but there's still some damage. It's crazy. It was insane.
I imagine that had to be terribly startling. Have you left your home? Have you gone out and seen the Motel 6 for yourself?
No, I won't do it. My husband did, and he got, because we're right there. We're kitty corner from them. They're like 100 yards away from us because everything is right on top of each other because it's the city part of Bremerton. And I won't leave the house because then, like, the whole my street flooded with people that were running down to see what was happening. And I just didn't think it was really, like, a great idea to run into an explosion. So I stayed inside with a 2-year-old and haven't really left the house since.
No,
I'm just peeking out my back window to make sure nothing is, like, on fire in my backyard.
No, smart to consider your safety there. What did your husband tell you about what he's seen at the Motel 6?
He said there's a side wall that's completely blown out that came out towards Sure Clean Auto, which is on the road I live on, and which is also off of Kitsap Way. So, I mean, we're talking all within, like, not even kidding, within 50, yards of my home.
You know,
this
Amy,
all happened. And so
we're hearing that this could be a possible explosion as a result of a gas line problem. Have you gotten any reverse 911 calls, any kind of contact from authorities about the safety of where you're actually at right now, being how close you are to this area of concern?
No, which kind of, irritates me because, like, you would think you should have seen my street when this happened. People, I can't believe these people, like, that they just did, ran towards, like, the fire. Like, why would you do that? And we haven't had no warning. There was nothing that's really been said. I did hear something about 911 over an intercom about 20 minutes ago. But I don't know. Again, we live right behind Puget Sound Energy, and so I don't know if that would even be, like, related in any way. But that alarm had been going off for well over an hour before this explosion had happened.
You know, Amy, a lot of people not familiar with this part of Bremerton. Set the scene for me. How busy is this section? How many people live nearby? And how busy does the Motel 6 seem to be on a regular basis?
Okay, the Motel 6 is, like, just newly open from years after years of being shut down. So I believe that for the most part, it's a government hotel where a lot of the contractors that come in to work for PSNS stay. And that's pretty much all I think, because there's, very few people in the parking lot ever. And it's only been open for a couple months. And so we're right next to Kitsap Way, and so is Motel 6. And that road is extremely congested, like every day, all day long, because you get all these workers coming and going from the base to home for home to base. So then there's side streets such as ours, which is where the car wash is and behind the hotel. And people take those roads to cut around traffic and stuff. So we're talking a lot of like people within a small area. We're talking a lot.
Amy, I want to thank you so much for joining us and for calling in and letting us know your experience. I imagine this is quite terrifying. Glad to hear that you're taking your safety seriously. I want to update everyone who's listening in just one more time. Reports that one person has been injured and taken to the hospital. Again, this is an explosion, possibly because of a gas line at the Motel 6 in Bremerton. And as you just heard from Amy, this is a very busy area, a busy street with lots of stores nearby, homes also nearby. We do have a crew on the way, and we are also working to get information from officials about for sure what led up to this, how safe is this area, and how many people for certain have been injured. This is a developing situation right now, and we're working to get as much information as we can. Thanks, Amy. And now at 9:30, checking back in on breaking news in Bremerton. An explosion has hit the city's Motel 6. Fire officials think a gas line may have exploded. This photo is from a tweet from a reporter at our news partner, the Seattle Times. You can see the smoke billowing into the air there. An earlier photo that we saw just showed a big portion of the building basically leveled. This Motel 6 is located on the 3400 block of 11th Street in Bremerton. Initial reports say one person has been injured and taken to the hospital. People living nearby told us that their windows shook. They were woken back up because of this. And we now have Eric Womack on the phone, and we want to check in with him. Eric, you work at O'Reilly Auto Parts, which is nearby?
Yeah, it's right across the street from the motel. It used to be a Dunes motel, and then it was recently converted to the Motel 6, so it's had some renovations recently.
Now, Eric, were you there when this happened?
Yeah, I was. I was actually out in the parking lot helping the customers with their vehicle, and the alarms across the street at the motel had been going off for quite some time. I would venture to say at least 20 minutes. And one of the fire stations in this area is a third of the mile down the street. I mean, it's within spitting distance of the motel, but the alarms at the motel had been going off for 20 minutes. And then they finally showed up. And soon after they showed up, they couldn't have hardly been out of the truck before the explosion happened. And I felt a concussion, and I saw debris fly up in the air with a small plume of fire. And as soon as the explosion happened, everybody, including Jesus, decided to show up for the event. But it took them forever to get here, and then after it happened, it seemed like everybody wanted to be involved.
And Eric, we're looking at a picture now of the damage to this Motel 6. It is incredible. Right now we're hearing that one person was injured. Did you see people running out of the motel? To your knowledge, had people already evacuated because those alarms were going off?
It looks like it's already been evacuated. When I was outside, there was people standing in the parking lot. There's a Burger King over there and several other restaurants right next to that hotel or motel, and like I said, there were several people standing in the parking lot already, kindly watching. My wife had driven down, it's actually Kitsap Way, which is a major thoroughfare through this part of the neighborhood. She had driven through the area about 10 minutes before and said that she had smelled gas, and there was a couple other people that said that they had smelled gas prior to the event also. So right after it exploded, there was more fire trucks showed up. Fire trucks out of the district showed up. At one time, I counted 5 ambulances out there, and if there's one cop out there, there's 30 officers out there. They have both sides of the street barricaded. The street is shut down. There's no traffic on the street whatsoever.
You mentioned that your wife had smelled gas. You work right by this location. Were you seeing anything that made you think something could be wrong prior to these alarms going off? Did you smell the gas yourself? Anything at all today that seemed out of the ordinary?
No, actually, I didn't smell anything. I'm a little west of the event, and the wind, the smoke is as it's going up, it's going north, kind of away from me. So I live probably about a half mile from where that took place, and my wife has messaged me that she can't even hardly see the buildings across the street from the house, and the house smells like smoke now. So I never really, at one time, did I ever see any orange flames over there. My view is blocked by a couple buildings, but the smoke has continued to roll or boil up out of there ever since the event took place. One time there was a bright orange cloud, but other than that, it's just been mostly smoke. I've seen utility companies roll in there, but the utility company the truck that I saw go in there was for electrical. It wasn't for gas. So I don't know if they're trying to shut off the electricity to the area, and I'm sure that they're still waiting for the gas crews to show up, but yeah.
Seems like a pretty unstable situation. I want to let our viewers know that we are working to get Sky King over this so that you can get a nice aerial view of exactly what Eric is describing seen here. Eric, we were talking to Amy Delaney at the top of the show, and she was telling us that her windows were actually shattered in this explosion. Did your auto body shop have any damage, and do you see any damage to other nearby businesses from this blast?
No, I didn't. I saw the one puff of debris come up out of the ground, because as soon as it happened, I looked over there and I saw the debris come up, and there wasn't a huge amount of debris, but I saw some debris come up out of the hole. It kind of sits down in a little hole off of the street and away from the other businesses. So to me, that would kind of protect other structures, because it's lower than most everything else. Other than feeling the concussion, I didn't hear, glass breaking or things toppling oil over or secondary explosions or any of that other stuff. I only heard the primary explosion.
Interesting thing that you mentioned, 20 minutes you say the alarms were going off before anyone arrived in terms of firefighters or personnel to see what the problem was?
Yeah, that is a kind of an interesting aspect of this whole thing, and hopefully somebody is hearing this that can look into that. I don't know if it's, the cried wolf syndrome or what the deal is, but for as close as the fire stations are, for them to take as long as they did to get here is completely unexcusable.
Yeah, I bet that this was extremely frightening for you, Eric. I'm glad that you are okay. I'm glad to hear that your wife is okay. Please make sure to stay safe. I want to turn now and let's take a look at Sky King over this damage. We don't have it yet. We are working to get that for you, and we will show you those pictures. But just to recap, this is the Motel 6 in Bremerton. This is on the 3400 block of 11th Street. One person injured and taken to the hospital. Looking at this damage, a big section of the building just demolished. It is surprising that more people were not hurt. But as you heard from Eric, alarms going off for about 20 minutes prior to this explosion. People reporting that they heard gas, they smelt gas, and so obviously people in the area knew that something potentially was wrong. Firefighters got there right as this explosion occurred. The area now blocked off, traffic not being allowed to go through here. And this is a very busy business park. We've got the auto body shop where Eric works. There's a car cleaning location nearby, and also some fast food restaurants. Now you can see these images from Sky King. Of course, it's dark, so it's hard to make out, but you can see the flames and that plume of smoke that Eric was talking about. His wife was saying they live not far away, and it's making it hard to see in that area. All of the smoke coming from this building. Firefighters telling us they believe that this is the result of an explosion because of a gas line. The alarms were going off before this happened. Looking at this damage, it is just amazing that right now we are hearing reports of just one person being injured and taken to the hospital. But you can see where those flames are. From what I'm being told, that used to be a Motel 6, and it now is essentially flattened. Firefighters putting water on that, trying to control those flames, trying to get this out. And then I'm sure electrical crews, as you heard from Eric, have arrived. People that work for the power companies have arrived, and they'll look at those gas lines and try to make sure that this situation is safe. Obviously keeping people back, keeping people away from this area, as right now this could be a moving situation, wanting to make sure that no one is near this area in case there could be another explosion. You can see it's pretty dark in there as well right now. It's looking like they're controlling the power and the activity to that area. We're going to stay on top of this, stay on top of these pictures, and we will continue to update you as we get more information from officials who are really just sorting all of this out right now.
New video from Sky King of the breaking news we are tracking in Bremerton, where an explosion has leveled part of a Motel 6.
That motel is between 11th and Kitsap Way in West Bremerton. Police say it was a gas explosion and one person was hurt. Sky King is up live overhead right now. And you see there is a fire that continues to burn. You can see the flames, the smoke coming from a pile of rubble. Police and fire, they are out there keeping an eye on this, trying to get it under control. We want to get right out to King 5's Natalie Swaby, who arrived a short time ago, and she joins us on the phone now.
Well, that's right. We're actually here in the street across the way from this motel, talking with people who are actually staying there, and they're describing some amazing stories of being in the hotel, hearing the alarm, the alert to evacuate because of a gas leak. And some of them just talked about kind of leaving in a leisurely way, not really understanding how serious it was until someone who works the motel told them that this was serious, they needed to move fast. And then they talk about just sitting across the way watching as this explosion happened. Now, I just spoke with some people who have some photos of that moment right as it happened. Also talking with a man right now who said his room was one of the ones he watched it explode. What we're learning from the police department right now, the police chief saying that they know that one gas company employee was critically hurt in this, but because that evacuation happened at that perfect time, about few minutes before the actual explosion, there are no other injuries to report as of right now. So the early information, we have one gas company employee critically hurt in this, flown to Harborview Medical Center, and as far as we know right now, no one else hurt. Police are going to continue to be out here for quite some time. It's a massive crime scene, so many roads blocked off, and we're working to learn more as we go. But that's what we know for now. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Natalie Swaby. Looking at the pictures, that fire still looks like it's being fed still by some kind of natural gas. That gas smell was reported a little before 8 o'clock this evening, and it was about 30 minutes later that the explosion occurred, and it was a big one.
And we heard from Natalie, the alarms in the hotel did go off. Everybody was evacuated, and only one report of an injury, a gas worker who was on scene. People across the hotel felt their windows shaking. They heard the boom, and clearly you can see the smoke there for miles. We are joined on the phone right now, I believe, by Tony Perry. Tony, if you're there, we don't have Tony just yet. We're going to get to him in a bit.
We can, though, hear from a witness who talked to Danielle Lee in the 9 o'clock news here on Kong. She and her husband and small child live very close to the Motel 6, and she describes what happened when the explosion occurred.
And I had just sat down on the bed, and we had heard the alarm because we live directly behind PSE, Puget Sound Energy, and it had been going off for about an hour. And I turned to my husband and just said something, and like within 5 minutes, we had this huge explosion that sent a shockwave through like this little like canyon area behind our house, up through our backyard, in our window, shook our house, cracked our windows, and tossed me out of bed.
I live probably about a half mile from where that took place, and my wife has messaged me that she can't even hardly see the buildings across the street from the house, and the house smells like smoke now. So I never really, at one time, did I ever see any orange flames over there. My view is blocked by a couple buildings, but the smoke has continued to roll or boil up out of there ever since the event took place.
And those are witnesses we heard from earlier this evening on King 5 News. Right now, we are joined on the phone by Tony Perry. He witnessed the explosion. Tony, can you hear us?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Tell us where you were in relation to the Motel 6 when the explosion occurred, and describe what you heard, saw, and felt.
I'm about 200 feet. I was over the whole Raleigh parking lot, and I was putting a light in my truck, and we just kept hearing an alarm going off, and me and the guys were like, God, I wish they'd get the fire truck up here soon. And all these people started evacuating from the building, and I was taking pictures at the same time because all of a sudden you could see this black smoke coming up. There was no explosions at the time. Not even 30 seconds later, as I was taking pictures, you can see one of the pictures. I mean, it vibrated us, and I'm standing probably about 300 feet from it right now, and that's where I was at the time. And it just shook me, like, it buckled me big time. And the guy that was next to me, I literally have the guy that is staying in the motel. His side of the building is totally gone. He's right next to me right now. If you guys like to talk to him, it was just stunning just to see what we saw.
Yeah, we would love to talk with him, but Tony, while we have you, can you describe how that hotel, or at least part of it, just crumbled? It looks like it collapsed.
To be honest with you folks, I couldn't see how the crumbling part is because I'm in front of where the Spiros is, and there's another building right next to it. All we could see is the big black cloud come out and exploded. It's kind of like a mushroom kind. And next minute, it just kept burning and burning. You couldn't see nothing for a good 30, 40 seconds. And then all of a sudden, the fire trucks were in there trying to put it out. I couldn't see anything actually blow up because where we were down lower than on the other side where Wilbert is, where people probably can see it. But right now, it's still smoldering, and it's just crazy right now.
But you must have felt the explosion when you did.
I have the picture when I was standing, and you couldn't even see what was going on. You could see the explosion, but it was just your news crew's here now, and they took videos of it. So, I mean, I was taking pictures the whole time.
What was your first reaction when the explosion occurred?
We didn't know. We didn't know what it was. We just know it was a motel. We didn't know if the kitchen blew up or what was going on back there. I lived in Bremerton, a good part of my life, and I knew that area, and I kind of figured out, something happened in the kitchen. Like the guy here said, he could smell gas, but after probably about 20 minutes or so, we could smell it before the explosion, and because of the wind. And that's what this guy was saying. He said it almost put him to sleep, and his room's gone. I don't know how he got out or whatever, but he's right here. Yeah, I guess they were warned about the gas. Now they're telling him to get out.
Tony, did you hear one explosion, or were there multiple explosions?
No, there was just one big boom. I mean, it was like a fuel tank just went off, or like a small bomb went off. It just shook everything around here. I mean, like I heard somebody say the windows broke and a bunch of other stuff. We can't see none of that. We're on the opposite side of the motel. But I guess some guy's truck's windows got blown out and a few other, because the impact was just crazy. It's like taking, what do you say, duct tape and a bunch of sparklers, and you light it up like that, I know you guys know what that is. That's like a bomb there. That's how it felt, but stronger.
Well, Tony, we appreciate you telling us what you saw and felt and heard. Tony Perry, one of the witnesses to the explosion at the Motel 6 in Bremerton. He was standing about a football field away from the building, on one side of the building, where he actually didn't see the explosion, but certainly felt it and saw the aftermath of what had happened. We'll continue to follow the story throughout this broadcast and bring you more information as we get it.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.